Education was not simply another part of American society. It was the key that opened the golden door.
Through education, you learn how to learn.
We must trust students to learn if given a chance.
If the pursuit of learning is not defended.
Welcome to the 180 Days podcast, where we're going to be talking about all things education, having to do with parents, students, teachers, policy, kind of whatever is happening in the news and what's relevant in the world today. To start us off is one of our hosts, Tim Pope.
So I think my number one qualification for doing this is that I have 5 kids. I think everything else is sort of secondary to that. Is that a qualification?
Qualification. You beat me there.
Yeah, everything. Let's see. My youngest is now a 4th grader, and now
God.
I have my daughter returns from college
First
next
year,
week. Right? Yeah, I'm debating whether I'm happy about that or not. Don't tell her though. I don't know if she's going to listen to this.
That'd be cool if she did.
I've been in education, 20 years now? I taught theology, Spanish, PE, law, psychology, and then last but not least, math. And then at some point in there, I was a principal for a couple of years on the Navajo reservation. At some point, we'll have to chat about that story.
Definitely.
And now, the last 10 years, I've been doing publishing, including my favorite 2 years. So I have more than 2 years. How long have we worked together?
Believe it or not, for 10 years, Mr. Pope. A long time.
Exactly. And the fact that you have, 22-year-old?
24. She just turned 24 yesterday, my oldest. And then I have, almost a 22. I don't have 5. So there's that.
So I spent a lot of time thinking about education. And so I talked to you, and I thought maybe this would be a good idea to play around a little bit with it. So what about you? I kept the cat out of the bag about at least one kid.
Yeah, I have two kids. And my name is Karen Greenhaus, or Dr. Karen Greenhaus, if we want to actually be pretentious.
Yes.
We do need to get that. I worked very hard for that, so I'm going to add that in there just for the heck of it. And I've been in education, almost 28 years. Really long time. Started when I was 10. Actually, no, I started when I was 5. I went to school, right?
Right.
I haven't had taught quite as much a range of topics as you. I basically have focused on math and technology, but I've, taught in the middle school, taught in the high schools, was a supervisor for a couple years, which is how I actually met you, remember? Because our school district had adopted the textbooks that you were working for at Key Curriculum at that time.
I do recall.
So that was the beginning of our beautiful friendship. I went and worked with you then in publishing for a couple years at Key Curriculum, and then McGraw-Hill once they bought us, which that's a whole nother story we can get into later.
They're not going to be a sponsor, are they?
Maybe not. They're not excited about that. And so then I finished my doctorate finally, and I've been kind of working on my own for the last 3 years. It's going on 3 years now. So I'm kind of a gun for hire, education gun for hire. So I do a lot of different kind of work now, training teachers still and working in technology, doing research, working for lots of different publishing companies and technology companies. So I'm having a lot of fun. So I was excited when Tim asked me to do this broadcast with him. So Tim, my first question is kind of, why did you want to do this? Because there's a lot of education podcasts out there. So, how's our voice going to be different?
So there's a lot going on at schools, and in the media, there's just so much going on in the news that it's not that I want to slam the media, but it's just there's too much. And so you get the top headlines, and people don't understand, what does this mean for me? And so I thought it'd be great to have a podcast, with someone who is wonderfully entertaining, and we can try not to be dry and dull.
We can try. It's so hard for us, Tim.
I know it is. I struggle with it, but I really, as everyone knows, you go to cocktail parties and whatever you do for a living, you become the resident expert on that thing. And so whenever anyone, if you have a lawyer friend, everyone goes to them with your legal question, your doctor friend or your nurse friend, you go to them about what's ailing you. And so as the education friend, whenever things would come down in education, I'd be the one that would get asked, or why did my kids adopt this really weird math book, or why are the schools not spending money on art anymore? I do get a little bit of Math Dork Award because I am the guy who once, trying to explain why math was taught the way it was, actually pulled out a whiteboard marker at a cocktail party and wrote on my refrigerator.
Oh, and you didn't send everyone running? That's a shocker.
I'm a good time. I'm just saying, I could even do math at a party and people stay. It might have had something to do with the free cocktails, but I mean, whether you're a teacher or a parent or just someone who's interested in what's going on with schools, to spend a little time every couple of weeks to look at various subjects and how that affects schools, how that's really going to affect learning. Is it a lot of bluster? What are things you should worry about? What are things that maybe you shouldn't worry about? So that's the general idea. To look at some topics and make them friendly and approachable, so that you can be more informed about what I consider, and I am totally biased, I consider one of the most important things facing our nation right now.
I would agree with you. And I was excited. Tim asked me this. It was at NCTM just a couple weeks ago, and so we've been kind of planning this for a while. And I'm excited because just like you, I get asked a lot of questions from education. And like when I go visit I was just in California at my sister's, and her kids are asking for help on math, and they don't understand this, and what's wrong with this book, and what's the Common Core. So I'm excited because I think there's a lot of misinformation out there. So this is just another way to kind of give it different perspectives, I think. And so hopefully we'll have fun doing this. We'll see. It's a new adventure for both of us. So I think we're going to this is our first episode. So bear with us. We're learning the ropes here, and hopefully going to have a good time. Why 180 days? The name. That was a question. I love it. But
I try to be creative and cute. Now, there's 180 days in a school year, and I figure this is going to be a little mini school day. I mean, we've already been talking about format and structure and trying to make that work around 180 days. So we spend 180 days each year trying to learn, so we can spend 180 days. Now, ideally, this will go past 180 podcasts.
Let's hope. Let's hope that happens.
The plan is a schedule. We're gonna do this every couple of weeks. Or twice a month, I guess, is what our goal is, and to get a website up so that folks know what the topics are going to be as they come along.
We're working on that now.
I'm thrilled about it. I'm also thrilled that Karen has adult children, and adult children who have skills around the things you need to do to get a podcast together.
That's right. We're making this a family venture. Yeah, it is kind of fun. Everyone's excited.
I'm thrilled that they're thrilled.
We'll see. I think they're expecting money. I haven't told them the bad news yet. No. So I think we were going to start this podcast with kind of an actual in the news right now education thing. And as we know, yesterday the House voted on what are they calling it? The AHCA. But that passed the House yesterday. You wouldn't think that had anything to do with education, but it does. And so you're the one who brought this up. So how is this impacting education, if it passes?
Well, first, just because it's our first podcast, I mean, I am positive that at some point our politics are going to come out as we discuss education policy.
Yeah, that's a definite.
Maybe yours more than mine. I don't know.
I don't know.
But so my number one goal is just what's happening. So one of the things, it's been all over the news. I'm sure if you follow the news that the House has passed their version of the American Health Care Act is the official name. And I've heard all sorts of nicknames. Trump Care. I heard Wealth Care yesterday. Someone's calling it. But what does it have to do with education? Well, one of the things that is included is special education. Traditionally, schools are Medicaid providers, and they use Medicaid funding to pay for some of the needs for the students who have the most physical and cognitive challenges in terms of paying for equipment, paying for therapists that are needed at the school, that all comes from federal Medicaid funding. And with the HCEA as currently written, who knows what the Senate's going to do to it, and then in conference, but as it's currently written, schools would no longer be eligible to be Medicaid providers, and that would cut off yet another source of funding to schools that are scrambling for funding all over the place. So it scares the bejeebers out of me. Special education is a phenomenally large part of school funding. I always crack up when I talk to folks about charter schools, and I mean, I do believe charter schools have their place, but why do we spend so much per student at public schools? Well, because public schools have to serve every student. And those students that are currently partially funded, their services partially funded by Medicaid, are expensive. I mean, it costs money to take care of our students who have the most needs. And so if you're involved in politics and or you're affected by special education, this would be the time to get the word out about that. I know my congressman is doing a town hall at the high school 3 blocks from my house.
I know you will be there. Yeah. Well, I was, reading on this, and people are wondering, why is Medicaid supporting the students? It's part of that Individual Disabilities Education Act, the one that our current education leader did not know about, the idea. And so they have to. It's a federal law that you have to provide services and stuff to these students with disabilities. And so I don't quite know if that law is not going to go away. So then if states aren't getting the funding from Medicare, it's going to have to come out of the state's budget, which, it's going to cause so many repercussions down the line if these things go away. It's frightening.
Well, exactly. I mean, so that funding cut there, it's, like you said, since it's the law that those services have to be provided, then they're just going to have the money's going to come from somewhere else in the school budget.
Right? And we already know how strapped school budgets are these days. So
every group of teachers I talk to, I've yet to go to a district. I'm sure at some point, maybe you have in your work, you travel a little more than I do nowadays. Some school district, they say, yeah, we're flush.
No, that has never happened in my 28 years of teaching. That has never happened. Flush is never the word that you would ever hear. It's usually, we don't have enough money to buy a rulers for every student. I mean, silly things like that. So can you imagine this type of funding going away? Kind of scary.
I'm sure at some point we'll do a whole episode on the other education policy issues in terms of school choice and how that really is going to affect schools and all that sort of stuff.
Absolutely.
Unless we both end up going to finding the same article like we did for today.
Right. Well, I think it's the only article out there. I looked for a couple others.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. It's definitely the one that came up.
I know we talked about keeping this one short.
So this was kind of this is what's going to happen in the future kind of thing.
A little trial run, a little introduction, and at least a taste of what we're hoping to talk about. So with that said, thank you very much for listening to our first, what did we do, 15 minutes or so?
20 minutes, yeah. It's going to get cut down, but we'll see.
There you go, yeah. When the editing folks get a hold of it. All right, leave my jokes in. That's all I'm saying.
Do we have to? Oh, no.
Please. So with that, thank you very much for listening to our first of 180 Days podcast. Please remember, subscribe to us in iTunes. That helps us out. And 5 stars, right? It's 5 stars?
5 stars. I think 5 stars. Totally.
I mean, just based on this 20 minutes, that this is easily a 5-star podcast. So reviews help, but thank you very much, and we'll talk to you in a couple weeks.
Thanks.
There will always be those who scoff at intellectuals, who cry out against research, who seek to limit our educational system. The educated citizen knows how much more there is to know. Knowledge is power, more so today than ever before.